Let's talk about the fascinating deck building decisions made by those who top cut the Oceania Major RLE this past weekend. This series has a core idea behind it, and that's that every card included in a list comes with an opportunity cost of the cards not included. So for each of these top 8 deck lists, I'll give you a general idea of what's going on with the list, but then I'm going to pull out 1 or 2 specific cards that are surprising inclusions, and then 1 or 2 cards that I think are surprising exclusions. We have thousands of cards that are legal right now in the standard format, and so looking at these decisions is sometimes fascinating to see what the best of the best are doing. Let's start out with number 8. We have Bailey on Water Toru 2. And if you remember, Bailey also top cut my Godzilla Girl Power event just a couple weeks ago, where he ultimately walked away with 2nd place. And the list here, I'm going to compare it, we're just going to kind of flip back and forth, is almost identical. The only changes that Bailey's made is that he took Return of the Kings from a 4X to a 3X, and he took Struggling with Studies to a 3X to a 4X. So one change there. And then he added in 1 more attack, Surging Crystal Darts. He gets some Deadlock. You get some added damage pump that Toru's helping you make sure that attacks don't get blocked, but you do need to end the games. And so he took the attack count from 21 to 22 and added in this attack that hits pretty hard in Surging Crystal Darts, also just has a little bit of Deadlock. So that makes sense there. But the surprising inclusion that I pulled from this list is Flashfire Fist Jet Kindling. It's a 3-5. Sometimes it's going to draw you a card. Sometimes it will have Echo. Sometimes neither of those things will happen though. You have to have 10 or less health for the Echo, so I don't think that's the reason it's being played. It's just a nice when it happens. But the reason it's really being played is that most of the time, I'd probably say 75% of the time, if you mill 3, you're going to mill an attack and then you get to draw a card. And the card draw is really important for Toru because this is a very defensive water list. And if you want to take control of the game with the defensive list, you need cards in hand to be able to block everything. And Toru is a 6-hander, so she's not going to play a control style defense as well as a 7-hander would. We have Battle Aura released to draw, but that's really it in the attack lineup currently. So if you look at the options that Water has, there's not a ton of great options, and Jet Kindling makes a lot of sense, and then sometimes has that added benefit of getting Echo. But this was put in there over cards, attacks that I might more traditionally see in a Water attack lineup, like Jawjammer. It's just going to be an 8 damage throw that's going to turn on our momentum-based defense, Cheerleader, Broken Psyche, Condescending Explanation. There's lots of choices there. Or like Falling Heel Strike to unflip something. We can unflip something that we flipped with Beneath the Armor, unflip a foundation we built with Weapon Clash, unflip our Struggling with Studies. So there's lots of great unflip targets here. But ultimately, Bailey chose that the draw option was a much higher benefit than Heel Strike and Jawjammer, so that he can more quickly take control of the game and always have cards in hand to block with. Okay, moving on to number 7, we have Justin Birch with Air Rodan. And when we look at this list, what does this list look like to you? If you've been playing the game for a year or so, this list just screams Air Jiro 1. A character that is no longer legal in the standard format, but is the character that Justin actually qualified for last year's World Championship with at US Nationals. Justin is an American who actually flew for this OCE Major Regional. He flew, across the world and ended up making top cuts. And I think he never was defeated in Swiss rounds, but then his deck kind of went kaput on him in top cuts. But if you look at this attack lineup and, we've got Double Jab Pummel, Falling Skies, Web of Blades, Latent Skill. This just screams Air Jiro 1, a character that Justin was very, very comfortable on, but now we're playing it as Rodan. And if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Rodan also gets to peek at the top of his deck and rearrange things just like Jiro did, except Rodan can even do it better once he has the, I think like 4 attacks in his removed pile, then he gets to look at the peek at the top 4. This deck has big turn 2 potential with cards like Double Jab Pummel and Lightning Rod really helping your checks or helping out your stage early. And then you can put your rival to life support on turn 2, and then your Rodan, so you get pretty strong defense on face, and then you can finish them off on turn 3 and turn 4 as you go. We can see 4xing Decoy Duplicate, I think is a pretty interesting decision here, really going for that momentum defense. Since Rodan's adding all this speed, we should have some solid momentum, or just making Falling Skies a throw to guarantee some damage early. Of course, we have cards like Supersonic Flight, which are just great, +3, +2 with Rodan, and then you get to remove it for +4 speed. One surprising inclusion is Dragon's Fortitude. It's a 2-diff, 2 mid-block. You can spend one of your momentum to give an attack -3 damage. It also has Deflect 2. So this attack lineup does draw a lot of cards with attacks like Electric Moth, Double Jab Pummel, and Walk the Dog. And now if we have too many cards in hand on a rival's turn, more that we can even block with, we can always just deflect with Dragon's Fortitude, or we can turn this momentum into damage reduction. This is kind of like Knott's Flask at home on the air symbol. So it's not quite as good, but it gives us something to do with the momentum, because our only momentum out really in the list is the 2x floating drop with Powerful 3. So it gives our momentum something to do, gives us a little bit more defensive versatility. And then the card that's excluded is Seizing the Advantage. This was a card that we saw a lot in Air Giro lists that we're not seeing here in this Air Rodan list. And the reason might be is that Rodan's already giving so much speed that we don't need the Seizing the Advantage on our opener. But Seizing the Advantage also just helps quickly build up your stage for a turn 2. Between like a Seizing the Advantage and Lightning Rod, you can get to 3 foundations built in while attacking, and then it also helps selectively flip a rival defensive resource. But ultimately, we're going for a higher foundation count here, and cards like Dragon's Fortitude and Decoy Duplicate over Seizing the Advantage. So at number 6, we have Keandre on Earth Pony. We actually saw 2 Earth Pony lists in the top 8. Who would have thought that Pony would make up 25% of top cuts? And this list is actually Barlow's webcam circuit list. So I think a week and a half ago, I hosted our first major webcam circuit, me and Tam Cardwell, and Barlow got top 8. Actually, I think he ended up getting top 4 with Earth Pony. And so Keandre basically took Barlow's list. Card for card, it's the same. And I think that's actually really cool. I think net decking lists is something we should do maybe more often as a community. I don't think it's anything to be looked down upon. Keandre won. He's the reigning champion for the Oceania Major Regional from season 1. And so we already know Keandre's a great player. He had messaged me like a couple weeks before this event saying, I'm still not sure who I'm going to play. What are some ideas that you have? Here are some ideas that I had. I think he told me he was leaning towards Endeavor 3 or Toga 3. And definitely leaning more towards the Toga 3 side of that. We were going back and forth with some Toga 3 deck lists together. But ultimately, the night before, basically, he took this really cool pony list from Barlow, played it, and then he had so much fun with it that he decided he was just going to play it for the major regional. So I think that's really cool, and I think it's one of the highest compliments when your deck list gets copied by somebody, and then they also have really good success on it. Right, because Barlow made top 4, but now we have Keandre also making top 8, and that really lends a lot of weight to this list to say, hey guys, Earth Pony right now is kind of cracked. We have 2 separate players who both did very, very well on this list. So there's a lot of weight behind this list. We know it's very, very good. And I already talked about this in a video last week where I did a deck list review of the webcam circuit top 8. So I won't talk about it too much here. It's all about speed with quick response and number 23 Pro Hero and Pony. We can clear our card pool like crazy. In my last video, I talked mainly about Spirit Slash because when you clear it, you get to build a card from your top of your deck. Sugar Rush Power Up, I think, is very neat here because we're very quickly filling up our discard pile with Pony by discarding 2 every attack. And, it's just an extra 2/4. We need that extra damage. And that's what I wanted to talk about here is the extra damage, is that we are 4xing Revel at his masterpiece. This discard the top card of your deck, this attack gets +1 damage. So +1 damage to every attack. But this is being done over cards like Steadfast Resolve, which could also add damage, but it comes with the extra versatility of being able to subtract damage on defense. And it would be a 1 diff when this list is pretty heavy on 2 and 3 diffs. I typically like my spam foundation count to be about 50% of my deck. So right now there's 44 foundations. We have 7, 8, 12, 16, 18. 18 of those 44 foundations are spam foundations. That's like about a 40% ratio. So I like my spam foundation counts to be about 50%, and you could just switch it to steadfast resolve. But the problem with steadfast resolve is, number one, you don't want to destroy your foundations early unless they're committed. And then most of the time, you would rather destroy your committed foundations for quick response and not for the damage. So it makes sense to go Revel at his masterpiece over it. But we're also running it over cards like Split Body Control, which when something's blocked, we can flip it and then selectively flip something of our rivals. The deck is a little low on low blocks, and so that might make some sense. Get down a defensive resource. You know, if you can flip through like Condescending Explanation, Broken Psyche. I'm thinking of Bailey's list here, or like Justin's list. If you can flip the Decoy Duplicate, then those might be very, very high value flips. But ultimately, the damage, you know, this is just about raw stats, number 23 pro hero, and quick response to give us the speed, Revel to give us the damage. We're going to play a million attacks. And yeah, Earth Pony just going crazy right now. Which brings us to our next list, which is James on Earth Pony as well. And this list is very, very similar to Barlow and Keandre's list. It's just a little more slimmed down. So I think the other list was like about 70 cards. This is much closer to 60. And we took the attack package. We're not doing anything with like Titan Cliff, Gigantification Swing, Tetra Terror. We're just playing the 5 core ones, Falling Skies, Battle Aura, Electric Moth, Spirit Slash, Horndash Hammer. And we're just going to 4X all of those. And that makes sense to me. The other, and we have the Sugar Rush, we have the Referee Jury, the Resistance Training, the Quick Response, number 23 per hero combo. Like I said, these are very, very similar lists. But there is one difference here, and that's that we're including a card like Chivalrous Competitor and Fearsome Transformations, both of these 1-diff foundations that flip to draw, but we're doing it at the exclusion of Flustered. So if you go and look at Keandre's list, you can see that we are 4Xing Flustered and 4Xing Chivalrous, but we don't have any Fearsome Transformations. But here in James's list, we are playing Fearsome Transformations over Flustered. So maybe I should have put Fearsome Transformations as the fascinating include, but both of these are 1-diffs that flip to draw. Earth has so many of them that you have to make a really hard decision. Chivalrous, you flip to draw, but it also helps your rival draw, but it's also stage protection for foundation destruction, and it's a low block. Fearsome, you flip to draw, but then you have to discard unless you have momentum, but it's also a high block. Flustered is a mid block that checks a 4, but it comes with the benefit of, if you're running this charge package, which they are, you can flip to draw or selectively discard a rival momentum. And I think that Flustered is one of the best foundations in the game right now, because you can selectively discard your rival's Black Abyss, and that's very, very powerful. But ultimately, we're going with the one that checks a 5 and a high block. And that's I don't think that's necessarily a wrong decision. It's just one of these decisions that has to be made in the deck building process. And moving on to our top 4, we have Joshua Miller on Earth Godzilla. And he's playing this attack package that at its core is throws. We have 10 throws here: Trap Flex, Aura Slam, Destructive Slam. This is going to help us get momentum, which is going to help us help our checks with Godzilla, +2 to our next check to play an attack or to block with an attack. And then we also have attacks that help us draw with Smashing Stomp and Titan Cliff. And then we have Heat Ray as a finisher, just a super, super fast finisher. But I love the inclusion of 2x Calorie Counter here. This is going to become a 3-diff that also gets Godzilla stats. So it becomes this 5-speed, 9-damage move. And if they block it, which, you know, it's a 9-damage move, they're going to want to block, then you get to selectively flip a rival foundation. I really, really like this include here. We're not just going all out on throws and playing every throw we can find. We're playing about half throws and then half cards that draw. And then we have this finisher with Deadlock and a Calorie Counter to also help us string out. And we're doing it at the exclusion of Black Abyss. And I see a lot of players slam Black Abyss into lists where it doesn't belong. And I think Joshua made the absolutely correct call here of playing a card like Calorie Counter over it. Black Abyss is very, very good in characters like Toga 3, Amajiki, any of these characters where you can consistently get it into your momentum. Like Black Abyss makes more sense in Chaos Godzilla when you get access to Friend of Animals so that you have a little higher of consistency. But in Earth Godzilla, I think it makes way more sense to exclude it and include throws with Calorie Counter, Smashing Stomp, Titan Cliff. So I really, really like this deck building decision. If we look at the list, it's very heavy on spam foundations, and specifically spam foundations that draw. We are 4xing Ferocious Attacker, 3xing Fearsome Transformations, 3xing Chivalrous Competitors. We have 10 cards that say flip to draw. We got 2x Monster Aggression, destroy something for +1/+1. And then we have some tech pieces here with like Learning the Standards, Vast Strength, Defending Pageant Queen. 4xing Moth Monster is pretty surprising. I see this a lot at like a 1x or 2x so that we can build it off Titan Cliff. But here we're just saying 4x. We don't even mind if we have to build it. Give us some speed hate here. But the best foundation, I think, is History's Greatest Monster. Because it says if you go into Deadlock, I'm running half throws right now, but if you go into Deadlock, I'm running all throws. I'm going to give my Calorie Counter, Smashing Stomp, Titan Cliff, Heat Ray, Throw. Giving a Heat Ray Throw is absolutely terrifying. And then at number 3, we have Torin on Death Younger Toguro. Death Younger making a comeback here, showing that the errata was just enough to take him down from, being the majority of top cuts to now we have one in top 8. And I think that's really cool that the errata didn't completely kill Younger, that he's still very, very competitive. And one of the cards that Torin excluded is Mop Strike, which is just this fascinating deck building decision because if he had included it, he would have immediately been disqualified from the event because this is now a banned attack. Younger got this card banned. Discard a card, your rival discards a random card, both players draw, and then you get to draw. And instead, we're playing like budget Mop Strike with Lizard Tail Splitter. But Lizard Tail Splitter actually is better than Mop Strike in a couple ways. So basically, you're going to discard a card and draw a card, and then your rival puts a card from their hand into their card pool and draws. And what this is going to do is give all of your attacks 1 speed. Also, Lizard Tail Splitter is going to get a lot of damage from Younger, which is going to make your rival want to block it. And if your rival blocks it, now all of your attacks effectively get 2 speed. The one that the card that they blocked with, and then the card that they put into their card pool with Lizard Tail Splitter. So I love Lizard Tail Splitter in anybody that can give it damage to where it forces their rival to block and double clog their card pool. Other characters like Wolfwood can also do really well with Lizard Tail Splitter. So if we look at the attack lineup and the deck list, this looks very, very similar to the Death Youngers of last competitive season. We've got the Vile Seizings, Trace Eyes, Battle Aura, 45%, Twisting Azure Inferno. This really was, hey, I'm just going to take out Mop Strike. I'm going to plug in Lizard Tail Splitter. Let's roll with it. We're still dominating. When I look any other girl power cards, we got the 4x Latent Skill. That's a new card here with this list is discard 2, draw 2. We're just leaning even harder into drawing our entire deck and finding the attacks that we need. But everything else, we've seen this Younger list before, and it's still strong. So Death Younger is still something I think you need to be prepared for if you're going to be playing at the St. Louis Major Regional or at the UK Major Regional. Just take out your Mop Strike, put in Lizard Tail Splitter, you're good to go. Coming in at number 2, we have Nathan on Chaos Godzilla. So we saw an Earth Godzilla, now we're seeing a Chaos Godzilla. And I think that this list is pretty close to perfect, but I might be biased, and that's because it's my list, somewhat. It's Nathan put his own spin on it. So it's pretty much my list that I showed off in my 10 competitive decks that I'm currently playing video from a couple weeks ago. I also keep all of my lists public on UVS Ultra, so if you click Godzilla, I'm not sure, maybe my list is one of the first ones that pops up. But I'm pretty public with all of my deck lists. You guys know that. And so this is basically my list was 65 cards. Nathan trimmed it down to 60. So what he did was he took out 2 Hiding in Plain Sight, 1 Friend of Animals. He took out my Dimensional Sphere, which I was probably getting a little too cute with that. Just for defense. And then he took out 1 Battle Arena, 1 Cape of No Return, and added in an extra Genkai's Guidance. So trimmed it from 65 cards to 60, but everything else is the same. The core idea of the list is that we're playing this all lows attack lineup that Chaos gets access to. Blue Flame Torment, Heat Ray, Walk the Dog, Smashing Stomp, Black Abyss. We're just going to overload the low zone, and eventually they're going to run out of low blocks. That's the core idea here. We're playing Black Abyss, but it's pretty consistent because we're also playing 3x Friend of Animals. And one of the surprising inclusions here is Hiding in Plain Sight. I don't see this card played a lot. This just says that you get to blow it up to put it into your momentum. And then if your rival's at desperation or less than half health, you get 2 momentum. That's very, very powerful, turning 1 foundation into 2 momentum. Effectively in Godzilla, that turns 1 foundation into 4 foundations because your momentum is worth twice as much as your foundation, since 1 momentum can give your next check to play or block with an attack plus 2. So hiding in plain sight, it's one of those foundations that I don't see a lot, but I think it's one of the best cards that Godzilla has access to. And then we have a surprising amount of defense here with Genkai's Guidance, Runaway, Cape of No Return. You know, we get to play that like chaos. I won't say like fake defense, but it's chaos gets access to very strong defense where you're not having to block all the time. But if we do have to block, we have Fast Friendship, Struggling with Studies, Nice Try. So this is a Godzilla list that is pretty respectful. And we can blow up our own stage on our rival's turn with cards like Genkai's Guidance, or just blowing up our foundations with Force Quirk, Hiding in Plain Sight, Friend of Animals. And then if we fall super far behind in our build, that's perfectly fine, because remember, we're Godzilla. We can always just press the once per game board wipe button and catch right back up to our rival. So I like the ability to destroy our stage and to not be afraid to destroy our stage. You know, we don't have to be afraid to use Genkai's Guidance. We can always just start the game over on our next turn. So one of the best Genkai's Guidance characters, or just the best character to blow up his stage and turn it into momentum. And then we have this very, very hard-hitting all lows attack package. And this is going to bring us to our champion on Water Ochako 4. We have Carl Bennett. Ochako 4 is one of those characters that people have been telling me I am too low on. I said this was a top 20 character, but not in my top 10. And I got a few comments saying I was too low. I also got a comment on my Endeavor Mountain tier list video that I was sleeping on Spike, which is like, well, I'm not sleeping on Spike. I won my a local qualifier this year with Water Spike. So I'm very familiar with the Water Spike list. I just didn't think anybody was going to be playing Spike. And so my bottom tier, I had these rogue characters, and I only included the characters that I thought would actually get played. But I thought Spike was definitely in that same category of characters where he's very, very good. It's just who's going to show up with Spike? Well, Carl did. One of the coolest things about his list is that it starts out as Ochako 4. You have this very strong water high attack package, Battle Lore Release, Falling Heel Strike, Jaw Jammer, Falling Skies Tasty Riffs, Ice Sword, and Kraken. You know, it's been a common debate recently, which is better, Ice Sword or Chimera Kraken. And Carl's just saying, why not both? I'll just play both of them. We get a little bit of Assate here, and then Ice Sword to maybe commit down everything. And then going second, or in specific matchups, Carl would sideboard into Spike. So we saw Carl win with Spike to win the championship and to win his top 4 match. A very, very cool sideboard. It really came in handy in top 4 when he was playing against Younger Toguro, because Younger gives you a face down foundation. So now Spike says, thank you very much. I got even better. Spike plays a little better defense because he gets to draw on his rival's turn. And he just slowly ramps up to better stats than Ochako 4. So if you're playing a longer game, you'd rather be Spike. If you're playing a turn 2, turn 3 game, you'd rather be Ochako 4. So Carl's saying that I'll start out as Ochako, but if I'm ever going second, or in certain matchups, I'm not sure Carl's thinking on this, but I imagine it's going second. Going second when I have to play a longer game, you know, it's going to be a lot harder to turn 2, like bop people going second than it is going first. I'll be Spike, and I'll just slowly ramp up my stats that way. So that was by far the coolest thing going on here. But I do want to talk about, like, our foundation package is very, like, water strong stuff. But I think Ochako makes really good use of cards like Leaving the Beat Bop and Hungry for Fame. These are cards where you get to use your momentum to grab an attack. Leaving the Beat Bop, you flip, discard momentum, discard cards until you find an attack. Hungry for Fame, you're going to commit and flip and take a momentum into your hand. And if you look at the water attack package, there's nothing here with EX or Powerful, other than Tasty Riff, which is Deadlock Powerful 7. But if we just ignore that, then there's no momentum outs in the attack package beyond 2 Ice Swords where you can discard 1 momentum. But that's it. So in our foundations, we need to have some momentum outs. And Leaving the Beat Bop and Hungry for Fame, these are both cards that For most other people, you can only use them once because of their flip cost. But with Ochako 4, we get to unflip something on our second attack, and we get to ready a face down when something deals damage. So if we use one of these on our first attack, and then and then our attack deals damage, we can ready it, and then we play our second attack, and then we can unflip it, and then we can use it again to go and get another attack. I've seen something similar used in other Ochako 4 lists with like Titanic Combat, where you commit for 2 damage and stun 1, and then you flip it for Ochako stats, you get to ready it, unflip it, and then use Titanic Combat again. It's also like a pretty cool water spike card because you get to commit when you take damage and build a card in face down. So it works in that sense as well. But ultimately, we're going for cards like Hungry for Fame and Leaving the Beat Bop, which makes a lot of sense for Ochako 4. We also have cards like High Spirit Awareness. I haven't seen this foundation played really in anyone else. It says on your rival's turn, you can flip it and take a face down foundation to your hand. So if we build in something with Weapon Clash and then we build in an attack into our stage, we can go and pick it up, or we can just go pick up one of our impactful foundations that we really want to build, or just the block zone that we need. So all sorts of ways to selectively pick up cards here in the foundations. And that is going to do it for this. I just want to say congratulations to Carl Bennett for taking down the Oceania Major Regional in Season 2. I will see you at the World Championship in Orlando next February. Big congratulations to our top 8. I thought this event was one of the most fun events to watch ever. Like I highly encourage you, if you did not watch it live, go back on Twitch to the Universus. I think it was commentated by Tam, Barrett, and Jesse. They did a fantastic job with the commentary. I watched everything until the championship, and then I had to go to bed because of the time zone difference. But very, very fun event to watch. Congratulations to everybody in the top 8, and especially to Carl Bennett for taking it down. But I want to know your thoughts. Was there anything about these lists that I kind of missed talking about or kind of glossed over? What were the characters that surprised you? Did you expect the top cuts to be 25% pony? And what characters do you think didn't show up in this top 8 that we do need to be prepared for going forward at the St. Louis Major Regional this upcoming weekend?